Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. My name is Patrick Knisley.
My name is Summer Rain.
My name is Jordan Willis.
And my name is David Howe.
And it's the four of us here, as I said, for a special episode this week where we're going to be talking about 2024, in particular Nintendo's 2024, but also a little bit about other gaming things that are happening in 2024. So this is going to be a mix of what we know about the year, what's rumored about the year, and what we personally, the four of us, would like to see and hope to see in the coming year. So it's predictions / what we already know about, looking forward to in the year.
Happy New Year.
It's a episode where the thumbnail is someone looking into a crystal ball.
That's right.
Which is what all the YouTubers do every year.
The wizards be pondering their orbs.
Yeah, I think last year it was like us, Game Explain, Kit and Krista, and somebody else all had essentially the same thumbnail. So we'll see what happens this year. You'll have to... I mean, you know already.
It's going to be a crystal ball in hands.
How was y'all's Christmas before we get into it? You guys have a good holiday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't expand any further. That's all you get.
Okay. Let's move on.
No. I'll say this. I picked up a bunch, like a shit ton of Nintendo powers that I had in my closet of my childhood home. In the background of the video version, I've got an old school Game Boy comic here. I found a bunch of old stuff that I've been wanting to go through for a long time. So I've got a treasure trove soon. So hopefully I'll be sharing some of the fun stuff that I find in some of these old Nintendo powers coming soon.
Anybody else got something quick they want to share?
I ate good food and hung out with family. All right, next.
Yeah, I picked up on Facebook Marketplace an old Italian-made electric reed organ, and I played the Earthbound soundtrack on it a lot.
Badass.
Because I felt like it needed to be played on that.
I got a couple days off from work, and that was good.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
dude.
speaking of Earthbound, by the way, you guys should check out that Earthbound documentary. I posted about it in the Discord. Earthbound USA. I just watched that yesterday. It was really good. And Pokemon Concierge. I watched some of that today, too. A lot of good stuff out right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting news we're having to skip, but we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to bring those two up.
But we're going to move on to the main reason we're here for today, which is to talk about Nintendo's 2024. So as we like to do, we're going to kind of go through the known things, and we'll go through this a little quickly since they're known, but maybe some of them are a little more worthy of discussion. But the first part of the year, I would say the first 3 months were pretty solid on what we know Nintendo's going to do. I don't expect there to be much that we don't know about in that time frame, but if y'all disagree, I would love to hear about it. First up is another Code Recollection coming on January 19th. Very, very soon, y'all, actually. I know we've talked about this game recently, so I don't know if there's anything anybody wants to say. There's a demo out. I still haven't tried it, but I still am curious about this game. So we got Mario vs. Donkey Kong coming February 16th. I think this game looks really pretty.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which of these two I'm going to grab from the remaining voucher that I have. They both look... I want to play both, but I know I'll play Donkey Kong Mario more than I'll play another Code. But also another Code seems like it's a better value, you know? So I'm kind of torn on what I'm going to get from these. But yeah, I know. We know Mario vs. Donkey Kong is being made by Nintendo Software, NST. I'm not sure exactly what that stands for, but the same people that did F-Zero 99. So they've got, I imagine this Mario vs. Donkey Kong's been done for a while, and most of them are on dev for F-Zero 99 currently.
We know about on March 22nd, we're getting Princess Peach Showtime. You got it with the exclamation point.
Which I think is what I'm going to use my other part of my voucher on.
I'm pretty excited about this one of all the three, to be honest with you.
It looks pretty, yeah.
And we've talked about those three games quite a bit, and they're we're going to do episodes on them in the coming months. So I don't know unless there's something real quick y'all want to throw in about any of those. I think we start to move on to some more ambiguously dated things. In spring, we can expect the Splatoon 3 Side Order DLC, which we also don't really know a whole lot about. They showed I don't want to say weird, but non-explanatory trailer back in the September Direct where there's like damage points on enemies. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. I'm kind of hoping that this is a roguelike, you know? There's been a lot of games recently that have been getting roguelike
DLC.
Like God of War got one recently, and apparently it's really awesome. And I think like putting in like a roguelike mode into something like Splatoon would actually be that would be a more fun form of DLC for me than just like a slew of challenging single player stages like they've been doing with more recent single player stuff. So hopefully it's something like that. But yeah, we'll have to see whenever this comes out.
Yeah, I could see that based on what they've shown, where they've just shown kind of lots of enemies and damage points. You know?
Yeah, and kind of skill trees that you can pick.
Yeah.
It seems like some of them are kind of random, maybe. So that would be a really cool mode if they ended up doing that.
But I expect we'll learn more about that soon. And it's spring, so that could be anytime, you know, between roughly March and June. And then we get into Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which is slated for summer, which I don't know if there's anything to say about this other than I still am surprised it's just Luigi's Mansion 2.
Yeah. I've got a feeling this is going to be like the final Switch only game.
Ooh.
You know, that we know about right now anyway.
Ooh.
You know, I think that we'll get into some stuff that I think is still coming to the Switch 1 soon, like pre Super Switch, and we'll get into all that speculation here shortly. But I've got a pretty good feeling that the next game we're going to be talking about is coming sooner than this one. I think this is probably the furthest out release out of everything that we've talked about so far.
Let's talk about it, which you're hinting at is Paper Mario, the Thousand-Year Door. I guess we'll call it a remake. We don't, they haven't said, but they've just said 2024 for this game. They haven't given us any smaller time frame. So David, you're saying you think it's coming out in the first half or so?
Some very recent updates have made me believe that this is coming a lot sooner than we thought. I would say potentially even before March. This game was just rated by the ESRB, which usually means it's coming out pretty soon. And also Walmart put out a post being like, which of these Nintendo Switch games that are releasing in like in the early part of the year are you most excited for? And Paper Mario the Thousand-Year Door was among them, right? It was with a bunch of others that we know are coming out, but like
that's
between
funny.
now and March, basically. So I think that this is going to be coming out pretty soon, and I think they put 2024 because they're still polishing and they didn't want to
commit to
say anything. Yeah, but I think everything that we've got in this section of the notes here, like all these games that are dated, we're going to be seeing, if we don't currently have release dates for them, we're going to be getting release dates for all of these in like a February Direct. Yeah, so I think all that is pretty assured.
That leaves us with the I don't know what you call this one, the the odd one out, the non-dated thing, not necessarily coming out this year because we don't know, but it could be, and that is Metroid Prime 4. You know, the last time we officially heard anything about this when they said that it was being remade, or did they have a little note around one of those Metroid games that they're still working on it?
I think when they put out Dread, they just said we're continuing work on Metroid Prime 4, and I think that's about all we've gotten.
Yeah, but they didn't mention it whenever they did the remaster, though, right?
I don't believe so. They might have.
Yeah.
I think I said on this podcast, like in 2018, maybe 2019, I said this game is like 5 years out, and I feel awful now because I didn't want to wish that into the world, but apparently here we are. At this point, dude, it's gotta be like a cross generation game. To me, it just feels like they're trying to pack so much in that it might end up being a Switch 2 game.
This kind of takes us into that next section about things that are more rumored and what have you. But do you think this could be coming 2024?
I think 100%. So from what I've heard and what I understand about this game is that the game is finished and it's actually been done for a little bit here. So I think that, Jordan, I think you're right in saying that this is most likely a Switch 2 thing. This would make sense for, let's all make a promise to say Super Switch instead of Switch 2. I'm going to do my best.
Okay, here we are.
But from what I understand, the game is finished. And what the delay is right now is that they're working on cinematics for it. And that's like what they're actually finishing. But the actual gameplay is done. A lot of people have been seeing like Retro has been continually putting out hiring notices, right? Which again, at this point in development, there's no shot that they're hiring like gameplay directors or whatever for Metroid at this point. You know, they've been working on it for so long. So my money is the game is done. They're putting the final polishes on cinematics and they're already working on whatever the next game is, right? And that's what they're hiring for. So I think, yeah, I would say that this game is sitting there waiting to go. And this is probably going to be either a launch game with the Super Switch or very soon after, maybe holiday game for 2024. But I just cannot see this going any further than 2024.
Well, that brings us to our sort of more rumored and speculated section, or rumored rather, I should say. And we got to start it off with what we were just talking about, the Super Switch / some people call it the Switch 2, but we all know it's going to be called the Super Switch.
It's going to be called the Super Switch Headz Switch.
But anyway, the next gen hardware for Nintendo has been heavily rumored, you know, honestly, for a long time, but especially in the latter half of 2023, we've been hearing lots of details and specifics from developer, or presumably trickling down from developers and whatnot. So what do we think? Are we all on board with it coming out in 2024? Do you think there's any chance they're going to try to push it past that?
I think it's coming out September 2023. Wait, what is it?
What year is it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. I understand that this hardware did not come out this year.
Hey, there's still a couple days.
I was wishing I was right there.
By
with
the time
you,
you're
like,
listening to this, you already have a Super Switch in your hands, and you're playing the new Paper Mario 1000 Year Door remake.
Yeah,
because it came out.
There's been an incredible amount of smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, it's also just time, you know? I mean, it's like, look at all the releases that we know about. They're all like ports or remakes or, you know, I mean, Princess Peach Showtime is really the only like original
new
game out of the bunch that is dated. And that screams to me curtain call for the Switch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like one of like, you know, a lot of times it's like there's a Kirby game that like closes out a Nintendo thing. Like that's what Princess Peach Showtime feels like to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's just there's been so many rumored games in this list that we'll go over here that have been rumored for a long time, which makes me think that these games are also done and that they're being held for this next console, right?
Yeah.
Well, before we move on to them, can I ask, do we think that games like Metroid Prime 4 and maybe a few others might be both like cross-gen on both platforms? And if so, like, do you think it's really just Metroid Prime 4 since they've said it was the Switch and that's why they're, you know, like they want it to be a launch game for this next one? Or do you think there'll be a few? Or
that's what they did with Breath of the Wild with the Wii U and the Switch, right? And that worked out fine. If that's the case, I hope that it's not held back by being Switch compatible, because the Switch really is showing its age at this point. And if we're not getting the full throttle what Metroid Prime 4 could be on a Super Switch, that'll be a little disappointing if that is because they're making it cross-platform. But I think a lot of these, yes, I think that we will see.
Do you feel like Breath of the Wild was held back because it was also on the Wii U?
No, in fact, the opposite. I feel like Breath of the Wild, they removed a bunch of Wii U functionality because they shifted the main design focus to the Switch. Like, for instance, it's so obvious that the tablet is meant to be a Wii U tablet. And like, it was supposed to have a map that was always up, but they just cut that functionality to make it like one-to-one with the Switch. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So so no, not necessarily.
Just curious. I didn't know if there was a parallel there.
I mean, I do think that Tears of the Kingdom runs better because it was redesigned for the ground up to fit the Switch's architecture instead of adapting it from Wii U. So there's a little bit of kernel to that, but
yeah. And that's not to say that some of these games aren't going to have additional functionality on whatever this new hardware is. We've seen that with some PlayStation 5 games.
I feel like you're in the camp, Summer, that Super Switch is going to have two screens. Do you feel that way?
Oh,
because I've heard you mention it in previous episodes as if it's like a given. Like, is that something that you feel is true?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's just funny to say it. And as somebody who still plays the 3DS, Oh, sure, fine. I'll set a tent up here because they shut down with the closing of the 3DS online store. That maybe also like leads to like we're going to have our 3DS and like the changing of the language around the online stores. Maybe we're going to have those online purchases be available on the Super Switch of our Wii U and 3DS purchases.
I have to agree with Summer. I think it'll be like an add-on. That's just like my theory, because I mean, where we're at with NSO too is like we have Game Boy Advance. What's the next step up? And you can't really do much without the second screen if you want to do any sort of NSO DS kind of thing. And I think that's something they definitely want to tap into at some point. So, I mean, that would be a huge selling point for me is like, oh, I would buy an extra screen for like $150 as like an on top of
like
purchase.
A peripheral?
Yeah, like that.
So
like
you don't think it's
on.
part of the base system?
Don't think so, but I do think they will have a second screen.
I do think we're going to be getting a decent restructuring and maybe expansion of Nintendo Switch Online, right? Recently, it kind of something that we have in the news here is that Nintendo they're investing a lot into further game development and online infrastructure to almost like $1 billion. And they're building a new office building that's going to be 12 stories tall, and they're getting they're investing a lot into this, right? And then another thing that we know about is that NERD, the kind of European division of Nintendo development, they were the ones that did the Pikmin 1 and 2 ports. They've been doing a lot of the GameCube stuff. They worked on, Mario 3D All-Stars and stuff like that. They've been doing all the NSO emulation stuff. They have a whole porting division, essentially, that they've been like a porting technology development team is what they call it. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of this kind of stuff, whether that means GameCube is coming into NSO, which I don't think it is. I think it's just going to be more of these ports and re-releases, but taking advantage of Switch 2. And then anything they can do to make their online infrastructure better, I think that's going to be a big focus for Nintendo for the Super Switch, because that's just like one of the things that they've gotten the most complaints out of, you know what I mean? And I think that, now that we've been fully in the Furukawa era for a while, I think they're really starting to shift their focus over that way, including, a lot of rumors we've been hearing about a kind of first-party streaming platform for Nintendo that has allegedly been being worked on by like some Korean company. So I think that we'll be seeing a lot more in that regard as all of the, major consoles are starting to get into streaming. I don't think Nintendo would want to be left behind on that.
Sure.
Well, I think all of the stuff we're going to be talking about under this sort of rumored probably falls under the Super Switch new hardware, right? Like, it seems hard to believe that Nintendo hasn't announced stuff if the Super Switch is really coming mid-year-ish or so. You know what I mean? That there's a lot we haven't heard about that's just for the Switch. So, but let's get into it. There's some rumors from Zippo, which Zippo has a so-so track record, but worth mentioning, right? David, did you want to go through these? Because I didn't read the official stuff from Zippo, so maybe there's some details I'm not aware of. But
yeah, I mean, most of these like we kind of have on the list already, and a lot of these we've been hearing about for a long time. And we could maybe just kind of touch on some of these individually. But
yeah, let's do that.
EPD Tokyo, I think that's Nintendo EPD 8. They have been rumored to have been working on a 2D Donkey Kong for quite a while now.
We've been hearing about that for 2 years.
I would say closer to 3 or 4 even, maybe. I feel like we've been hearing about that for a long ass time, but I don't know. Time is a flat circle.
Yeah.
But, they have had, this is another company that's had multiple hiring notices, and we'll get to a few of those here in a bit. But like we know that they've been working on a Donkey Kong game, and it's been rumored that it's a 2D game. And then also they've been hiring for 3D environment artists and 3D level designers as well. Mm-hmm. Now, EPD Tokyo, that's the Mario Odyssey team, right? So you got to think that, maybe this Donkey Kong game is done and they're holding it either for the opening of the Donkey Kong section of Nintendo World, which is opening in 2024 in Tokyo, or just to be a Super Switch first party game, right? But I think Odyssey 2 makes a lot of sense for that 3D game. I don't know what you guys think about those.
I think if they're making a new 3D Mario game, I'd be surprised if it's not Odyssey 2, but I'd also think it's a decent possibility. But just because that game was so good that it, you know what I mean? I feel well received. Yes.
Yeah.
That, like, just like Tears of the Kingdom, it seems like an easy one to just be like, crank out 10 more kingdoms and we're done, you know?
I think at this point though, I'm going to go the opposite because I think it could definitely be just a new Mario game that started as Odyssey DLC and then became Odyssey 2 and then became its own thing entirely because they've probably been working on this game since Odyssey wrapped up. So I could totally see it being a completely new game and maybe Odyssey 2 in style, but not directly in Odyssey 2.
Yeah. We got Bowser's Fury between,
I was going to bring that up.
Which felt like maybe a taste of something that could come too. So it could be a Bowser's Fury, I think. Like maybe not so much the Bowser part, but like the sort of open aspects of it. I would also love a game like that where there's 5 to 10 of areas like that.
I personally would much prefer, I think, a follow-up to Bowser's Fury than I would in Odyssey 2. I think Bowser's Fury, that style of game, spoke to me a little bit more than Odyssey did in totality. Mm-hmm. It was very short, right? But if you expanded that, it felt like little open worlds. And if you had like several of those as kind of levels, it would be like a bunch of little mini Mario Odysseys, like throughout the game, you know, like I just think that that's such a great way to do it. And so I think some sort of blend between the two styles is what I would want from EPD Tokyo personally.
If there is a launch of a new hardware Super Switch, makes a lot of sense for there to be a Mario game and probably a 3D one because of Wonder just coming out. And so I'd say hold your breath. I think that or within the few months of it, right? Like within the first chunk of time.
I would be surprised, honestly. I feel like they've been working on this Donkey Kong game for a
that's
while.
The big
so
push?
I think that would be coming out before a 3D Mario personally. I think they're probably still working on a 3D Mario and Donkey Kong is done. That would be my theory there. And I think that, you know, I mean, how cool would it be if they launched a new Switch and one of the launch games was a Donkey Kong game.
And Metroid.
Like, yeah. I mean, that would be great. A lot of people are going to buy this, you know? So it's like, that would be a really good push for both of those franchises, you know, which have had middling success. I think that could be what these franchises need to get a good jumpstart, right?
I just don't know if that's what's going to like sell the system out the gate, whereas a Mario game would 100% sell a system out the gate. I don't think people are going to rush out to buy Metroid Prime 4. I wish they would. And then also, to me, it's weird that they would launch a system with a 2D game, like brand new hardware. And then
that's true.
You know, so to me, that's why I'm like, it's got to be a 3D Mario, but that's just my counter.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if a lot of the rumors are to be believed, I mean, it might also be that they bolster the launch of this with a bunch of really, really good looking DLSS powered third party ray tracing fucking graphical showcases. You know what I mean? That's something that I think, you
like
know,
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah, there's been a lot of rumors about that. There's been a lot of rumors, you know, about Unreal Engine 5 running on the Super Switch, you know. So I think that if they come out with a bunch of really good looking AAA shit like that, a really good looking Western developed Metroid game with, you know, Metroid 4, 2D Donkey Kong. I don't know. I think they're in a good position. Hopefully they don't just like repeat the same foibles that they had going from the Wii to the Wii U is the thing, right? They got to differentiate this without it seeming just like more, because the Switch is so ubiquitous. And you're right, Jordan. It's going to be a bit of a challenge to convince people to pick up a new one,
which is like my concern with like having another screen as a peripheral for another system, because then you're going to have people that are confused and like think they can buy that peripheral for the original Switch.
Yeah.
The Super Switch second screen DS NSO accessory app.
New.
Light.
Real quick, the rest of the Zippo rumors for games that they have heard are coming to Super Switch would be that newly announced open world Monster Hunter game. I forget what it was called. Monster Hunter Wilds, maybe. a new Pokemon game, and this got my eye, a new Super Monkey Ball game, which has been rumored to be in development at Sega. And if that's the case, then yeah, I'm very fucking excited, especially if they go the way of Banana Mania and kind of that more old school style. I would be very, very into a new game in that franchise.
The fact that you say that, I was like, dude, you know what? When they were announcing all those old school Sega games, I would not be surprised at all if a Super Monkey Ball came back, because it fits right in the canon with all those games they announced already.
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
That like GameCube, Xbox era of Sega releases.
Yep. Crazy Taxi,
totally.
all that shit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jet Set.
And then we know, or we believe Bandai Namco is working on a couple of games. They announced their division that's just for like working with Nintendo that already existed, but they named it and that kind of thing. And we know Sakurai's working on a game because of a recent comment he made in his YouTube channel where he said, I'm still working on games.
He's like, I'm not retired. Yeah.
So obviously that brings up the possibility of Smash, whether it's like a deluxe version of Ultimate, which I think is possible.
Ultimate Deluxe.
Yeah. Ultimate.
Waluigi's
Ultimate Final
here.
V2 final use this version.
Turbo.
Yeah. .pdf.
But anyway,
7, 3, 2, 4.
what could the other, or if these aren't Smash, any thoughts about what Bandai Namco could be working on for Nintendo?
Well, according to their hiring pages, one is a 3D remake or remaster of some sort, which a lot of people have been. No, I think HAL is working, or I think the Kirby team that just made the last 3D Kirby is working on a Kirby sequel to that, right? But no, I think it's been oft rumored that it is a Kid Icarus Uprising remake, which would make a ton of sense. Make a ton of sense too if that's what Sakurai's working on. But then they've also been hiring for 2D as well. They said a 2D sort of game, so that would also line up with Smash. So I think like it could be possible that Sakurai is just working on both of these games, or at least overseeing both of them with Bandai Namco. It would track really well. It's like the team that he is most familiar with working with in the past like decade, right? So I think it would make sense that it would be those two games. But I don't know if you guys have any other ideas for what Bandai Namco might be working on.
I don't. I think those make the most sense. Like you said. What else we got on this list? Of course, there's Pokemon. Has been mentioned. I would be surprised if there's not some Pokemon game, right? Like they managed to make this year be just the DLC. Am I right about that? Was there another Pokemon the game that came out in 2023 other than Detective Pikachu, which I don't think we count? So hats off to there not being a new Pokemon game, although I guess the DLC is pretty like
hats off to there not being a Pokemon game except for all the Pokemon games.
Except for all the ones I just mentioned in the DLC.
So the DLC is like viewed now as like the third installment that we used to get in Pokemon games, right? So I would almost still count it as far as like their timeline goes, right? So yes, it would make sense for us to get, I don't want to say it out loud, but a remake next year of some kind. I don't know that they're continuing the Let's Go line. I know people keep talking about Let's Go, like Johto, but I'm not sure.
It's the last one was in 2017, right? That Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee came out. So I don't know. It kind of seems like that.
It felt
line
like
is
it
dead,
came out. It felt like the timing of Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, to me personally, lined up more with Pokemon Go.
Right.
And I felt like the point of it was to tie people in from the mobile game to the main line games to get them on the Switch to then play whatever was going to come out on the Switch next, Sword and Shield. I know Jordan and I have had our talks about Pokemon Black and White being remade, that we would personally just love it if they just did a straight port of it, because it is the generation that like I would say that the meta still kind of upholds with the modern games, other than like gimmicks, but those change like every game to game. So I got feelings about that one being remade potentially. Am I going to play it no matter what? Probably. It's probably my favorite. Well, I don't know. They'd have to do something really horrible to it, I think, for me to not play it.
They'd have to make it like the Diamond and Pearl art style for me to not play it. I really
Oh.
hated that. And I'm like, I hope they got enough feedback to be like, let's not do that again.
I truly, truly feel bad for, Diamond and Pearl Sinnoh fans on their behalf because it's a generation that I don't have like a super hard like connection to, but I do have ones that I have a hard connection to. And I know people who feel that way about that, the way that I feel about other ones. So, a lot of feelings. Talking about this for too long, but now that you have people who play Pokemon on the podcast, like we're going to talk about it.
That's fine.
Yeah, I've been seeing a bunch of like awful discourse online from people being like, man, everybody shit on Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but nobody shit on Super Mario RPG and Link's Awakening remakes. And I'm like,
Sure,
do
they did.
not compare those graphical styles.
But also people did shit on those games.
No, but that's not what the discourse is. The discourse is saying like, look at this. They're all like chibi versions of characters. Like, why are you saying? It's like, no. Let's not rewrite history here. Okay, like those two games are some of the best looking games on the Switch. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is one of the worst looking games on the Switch, like bar none. Like it's just because they're all chibi characters. Let's not get that twisted. Okay. So I wanted to address that discourse that I've been seeing recently. That's been really grinding my gears, but
which is part of why I'm like, just give us a flat port. Just give us a flat port.
It might as well have been the last one. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
instead of screwing with it.
But yeah, either way, I think it would be so good if Game Freak would just let another studio handle a remake next year and just not do another mainline.
Well, that's funny that you
Pokemon.
say that because Game Freak didn't do the Diamond and Pearl remakes.
No, I know.
They let another studio handle it.
No, I'm aware. I'm not saying do it exactly like that, but I'm just saying Game Freak needs to chill. You know what I mean? Like, because they have a few coals on the fire right now. Like, we also know that they're working with Private Division. Project Bloom is the code name. And we don't know that that's just going to be a Nintendo thing. It might not even be a Nintendo thing. That might be like a multi-plat sort of release. But they've got multiple coals on the fire. And I think that hopefully they heard a lot of the feedback from Scarlet and Violet fans that they just need to slow the fuck down. That would be my hope for 2024.
Well, they heard those dollar signs. That's what I know. My hope is a new Legends game beginning of 2025 and then fall 2026 new Pokemon game. Give them time to cook.
That would be ideal.
That's ideal.
Yeah. Even 2027, dog. Like, let each game have multiple years of development. You know, no more like overlap unnecessarily. But that's never going to happen.
No.
One more for summer, which is Fire Emblem. There's been rumors of a Fire Emblem remake for a while. It
was in the same leaks that gave us Fire Emblem Engage. So specifically, Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. I personally would love it if they would also include Thracia 776 in that as like a combined, like Echoes situation, like what we got with Shadows of Valentia, the remake of 2. And if it was in like a similar art style, if you listen to the last episode where I gushed about Shadows of Valentia, that would be so cool. Because everything that I hear about these games makes them sound like, if you really liked Three Houses, you would really like these games. Okay, cool. Make it so that I can play them without having to download 5 different kinds of ROMs on my phone.
Yeah.
So, and getting to play it in hopefully like a very beautiful updated format. So I think they're holding on to this one for the Super Switch as well.
So
yeah, I think it's a lock. I think if we don't get this next year, I think we're getting it fiscal year 2024. So it'll be like by March
early
2025, you know?
Yeah. Because at this point it's,
we've been hearing about it.
Hearing about it for a while.
And then we're kind of moving half away from Nintendo here with this last one, but I don't know much about this. I hadn't actually heard this rumor about a new Banjo-Kazooie game.
Yeah. No, this isn't necessarily a Nintendo announcement. I mean, Banjo-Kazooie is a franchise that is owned by Microsoft now. It's a rare franchise. But it has been reported by a few different sources, Nate the Hate on Rezzatera, and also a friend of the show, Hot Girl Video 69, that yes, a new Banjo-Kazooie game has been greenlit. And that is pretty much all we know at this point, but that it is being actively worked on. This is a game that I could totally see leaving the Xbox ecosystem to make its way over to Nintendo through that kind of somewhat forced friendship that Microsoft and Nintendo have. But I could really see this coming to both platforms. And we saw a lot of that even throughout this year with, just recently Jet Force Gemini and GoldenEye earlier. They kind of, even though there were two very different releases, the GoldenEye releases on both platforms, they were kind of treated as if it was a cross-platform release between both systems, right? So I could see that happening on Super Switch and whatever, Xbox Series X or whatever they want to release it on.
Didn't even Phil Spencer say something along the lines of, Banjo-Kazooie fans, we hear you? Something like that?
I think
he said that
in an
right?
interview pretty recently. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. And when he was talking about how we own all these beloved dead IPs now, and we're looking at them, and then he said that essentially.
Just saying we hear you though is like the equivalent to
Shut up.
Reggie. When Reggie Fils-Aimé was president, right? And he would always make jokes about Mother 3. Like they know it's just like an acknowledgement of something that the fan base constantly does. It doesn't mean they did anything about it.
Right.
I just watched a whole documentary about that. I think he's like being like Banjo-Kazooie's fans. We hear you, which is why Banjo will be a skin in the new Hexen remake.
Well, that takes us away from all the things that at least we have heard rumors about. There might be more, but I think that's going to bring us to what we personally might like to see that isn't, there's no reason to believe these things are coming other than just our own hopes and wishes. Does anybody have any that they want to give away or share first?
I'll go first. I just want a Metroid Prime 2 and 3 pack because we got the remaster. Doesn't have to be the same level of detail and care. Just a straight port would be fine with quality of life improvements. Some updated controls, maybe a little bit of autosave, whatever. That's what I want. That's my number one, just so that when Metroid Prime 4 does come out, you can play 1 through 3 on the same system in the same way that you will be able to control Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, seems a good chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if they're going to come before Metroid Prime 4, that's the real question, right? It's kind of piggybacking on that. I mean, the fucking oft-rumored Wind Waker and Twilight Princess ports, I think we will get those, gang. I really do think they're coming. I think they've been made by Nerd, and they've been sitting there. That seems like such an obvious, we're throwing this in a direct in like the waning days of the Switch before the Switch 2 comes out. Like one last little hurrah for all you people hoping for this before the Switch 2. You know what I mean? So I think
Switch.
Excuse me. I think that's kind of a given, but you had something else. I don't know who put new 2D Zelda, but do you want to get into that a little bit?
Oh, yeah, man. I would just love a new 2D Zelda. I mean, we still don't know what Grezzo has been working on, and I'm going to die on this hill that they are working on some sort of new 2D Zelda, that they did such a good job on the Link's Awakening remake. Nintendo was like, y'all do what you're going to do. They've just been doing so many ports and remasters and remakes for so long that I think it's finally time for them to like get their own game. So that to me is like, I really hope that is true. I don't know if it's true. I've moved on from the Oracle of Ages / Seasons remake in Link's Awakening style, and now I'm going whole hog 2D brand new Zelda from Grezzo.
Brand new would be cool.
Yeah, and that would be a nice little holdover until whatever new Fujibayashi directed Zelda game is coming next.
Especially
right?
if it was smallish. Like not like sprawling.
Link Between Worlds-esque, right? I think that's like what I'm looking for. And I think you're right. I think Grezzo now kind of has the pedigree for it, right? I think that would be really cool to see. And they've been a little bit more liberal with the Zelda license in the past few years as well, as we've seen with like Cadence of Hyrule and stuff like that, right?
Can I just throw one out?
Yes, please.
I think 2024 is the year for Star Fox to make its return. I don't know what it is. I don't know how, but since this is our hopes and wishes, I just hope it's a new Star Fox game.
That could be a launch.
And not another retelling of the first Star Fox for Super Nintendo, which keeps happening.
A new story, a new area, and it's space. There can be millions of planets. Let's send them through some wormhole that puts them in, some
In
sort of fish out of
1980s San Francisco.
Oh, no.
No, we're getting no
It's a walking
Fox's Sky.
simulator where they have to talk to citizens.
No
a
Fox's
Star
Sky.
Fox walking simulator. And it's just about like trauma and like repressed childhood memories.
Okay, no, this is hopes and wishes. So it is it is a space shooter, but like a new story, where they're maybe in some different sector or something. I don't know. I don't.
People are hungry for it. There's a lot of Star Fox spiritual successors out right now. X Zodiac, Whisker Squadron. There was one with like some dogs. I forget what it was called. It was like Dog Shooty Bark Bark Fly or something like that. But it was like, it's like there's a lot. I mean,
animals in space.
Yeah, people want their furries in space, and I think that it's time for Nintendo to bring it back. If it happens or not, we'll have to see. I think giving Platinum another shot, I would not be opposed to. I think that they got done a little dirty by Miyamoto and his trying to shoehorn in Wii U features into that game, and they didn't really get to make the game that they wanted to make. So I think giving them a shot to be a little bit more free reign, especially now that what's his name is out of the picture at yeah, excuse me, yeah, Kamiya is out of the picture at Platinum. I think that might not be a bad idea. But yeah, that's great. Ooh, I hope that happens.
What else we got?
I mean, if we're talking about vehicle-based Nintendo properties coming back, I mean,
the success of F-Zero 99.
Yeah,
I feel like was to test the waters and to get people. I think it was just to put it on people's radar again for a major new release.
Yeah, and I think that if it's not a remaster of F-Zero GX, which I would be more than happy with, which I think is also all but fucking inevitable now that NERD has their like porting division, right? And there's been a lot of excitement for F-Zero. I think give NST a new F-Zero game, like not like an F-Zero first SNES F-Zero style game. Give them a brand new fucking game. They've proven that they know how to make white knuckle, edge of your seat, like entertaining and multiplayer racing games, so I think them using the full power of the Super Switch to make a brand new F-Zero game, gets me really excited.
I think they were already working on it, and it's going to be a launch title, and they gave us F-Zero 99 to put it back on our radar.
I think it's possible.
I mean, F-Zero 99 could also just be like a stress test for network stuff for them, unlike what they want to do for a bigger game.
Yeah, period.
And if that's the case, I mean, they nailed it. It's a very smooth experience playing online, and I love that idea. That said, though, please give me just a GX remaster in 2024. I would be so happy.
What else? We got one or two more things here on our list, or if anybody has any other things in their head that's not shared.
Well, I put this one on the notes, but I think Jordan, maybe you should take it.
I was thinking about this because Camelot for the past forever that I can remember has been making just Mario sports games. I think their last Golden Sun came out in 2010, which was the third one. Dark Dawn, it was a DS game. But anyway, I don't know if they're done with sports remakes or what. I mean, I could definitely see them coming out with a new sports game next year, but they're in the cadence to have something on deck for next year. Maybe a Golden Sun game. I don't know if it's time to revitalize that franchise. We could see. I don't know. I hadn't even really thought about it. I kind of wrote off ever getting another Golden Sun. So I would be stoked. I'm not really sure where they would go with the story. The first two are linked together. And then the third one is like the children of the characters. So I don't know what they do with the fourth game. I would love it though. Just a new game in that world in general would be really cool to see.
I could see them doing a Mario versus Donkey Kong Advance Wars style remake of those two games together. Yeah. I mean, look at the pattern that we've been seeing with a lot of Nintendo re-releases recently. Like, they're doing straight up just remakes of Game Boy Advance games now.
But aren't we getting Golden Sun on NSO?
Yeah, but we also... Yeah, I guess you're right. But I don't know. Maybe. We haven't gotten it fucking yet.
The pattern that I'm seeing is that they hold on to... They don't give us the NSO like originals of games that they're remaking. And so...
You might be right.
But that means we could get a new, but they like to pair those NSO releases with like new games too. So I could see a new Golden Sun coming out after it comes out for NSO.
Yeah. We'll have to see. I mean, either way, I think we're going to be seeing more Game Boy remakes. Right?
Yeah.
While we're talking about NSO, is there any chance we get in 2024 new systems or a new like 99 type game?
Virtual Boy.
Virtual Boy. Headache, the app.
Virtual Boy that comes with the Super Switch VR headset.
Oh man, I haven't let go of that idea too. That Nintendo has been really
it's happening.
Nintendo's really good at not doing things first, but doing things better.
Can I be the one that gives an argument for why Nintendo's not going to do VR?
Yes,
Please.
VR companies all have on their thing like that it's not for children. Because there's no testing done that it's safe on children. And there's no reason to believe it's not safe for children. There's just a general sort of liability thing that happens with VR for
just
young
strap
children.
a bunch of kids down in a chair and strap screens to their eyes.
I think
why
that's
are we
why
testing
the Labo thing
children?
was what it was, and I don't think Nintendo
Because there are
until
legal
there is
issues
like
with testing on
proof,
children.
right? You can't test on children.
You can't.
Sure you can. I don't
No.
give a put them in a dark room. No one will ever know.
But the
Not
point
here.
I really think this VR thing with Nintendo, I think like maybe someday, but I think that's going to be like when that is gone, either through some scientific evidence or just through saturation. And maybe that's sooner than later, but it came up recently because my kid asked for a VR headset for Christmas. And my wife's like, I don't know if I want to get him another VR thing. And also there's this stuff out there
It
that if you
might
search for it,
be-
you'll find stuff that's like, it's not recommended
Yeah.
for children.
They're
They
still
just say that about
developing. That's
I mean, I agree, but that's
no,
enough
Patrick. That's a
to like I think
yeah.
prevent Nintendo from doing it. But we don't have to like this is a whole conversation unto itself because I mean I
Yeah.
agree in general. I'm not afraid of my kid using VR. Like
We
I
should have a
just think-
whole
Oh,
why
I
we
am
should
now.
test things on kids.
yeah,
episode
that's
of
what the
Super
special
Switch Headz.
episode will
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
Yeah, titled.
No, but thank you for being the voice for that a specific audience that we don't necessarily always think to talk about when we're talking about things that should include that audience, right?
But we can move on because I think we should.
Yeah.
But can I throw out
VR satanic panic notwithstanding?
the NSO stuff? Like I don't know if there's another 99 game or what have you, but maybe there's something. I don't know what that would be. The only other thing that comes to my mind that I feel like it's time for a new game entry in is Punch Out in 2024. I want to see a new Punch Out. I don't know with the new system launch, like if there's some improved motion or something. Is what
How
I
about just
prefer.
improved character design, right? Like just give us a punch out that isn't racist, and I think we'd be
Yeah.
good.
No, I think they should make it more racist. I think Punch Out's always been too woke.
Too woke.
I'm just kidding. No, but yeah, I think that would be great. I think I think a better release cadence for NSO. I think we're going to see cloud built in. I think we're going to have a cloud streaming service built into
Sorry.
NSO for Super Switch. And I got to say it. Someone's got to say it. Mother 3, Shadow Drop in one of these things. How fucking hype would that be? Especially if it's like the very end, right before the Switch goes out. They're like, oh, you better buy a Switch so you can get Mother 3, you fucking Mother fans.
Yeah, and then it'll be a limited time release like the Fire
Yes,
Emblem.
exactly.
Was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only playable on Switch 1, not Super Switch.
And only purchasable through before the release of Switch 2 in case they have shared stores or something.
Yeah, exactly. That'll get the
Jordan
Switch
and
sales over.
Summer look so upset right now as you and I, David, are like,
Yeah, we're just like
gleefully talking
cackling.
about-
See, that's what happens when you're a host for 5 years versus 1 year. It's the jadedness of me and Patrick.
It's just like the ultimate monkey's paw situation. Like, you finally get what you want, just never in the way that you want it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we're being silly. We should talk now about just general. We'll keep this kind of brief, but non-Nintendo. There's obviously lots of big games that are announced for specific dates and for non-specific dates. So if anybody wants to, we've got a big list here in our notes. If anybody wants to jump on any of the ones they're particularly excited about, so we can talk about them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have anything specific I necessarily want to talk about that we haven't talked about in previous episodes as far as other stuff is concerned. I think something that I'd really like just in general is that has been kind of floated for a really long time, but never really with any like sincerity is like Game Pass being around on other platforms other than Xbox. You know, they've kind of hinted at that in various ways, either that coming to Steam or to Nintendo Switch eShop or whatever. But I think that if we're going in this direction of the subscription model and cloud and all this kind of stuff, I'd really like to see them actually put their money where their mouth is and have it leave their hardware ecosystem beyond just like smart TVs and mobile devices, right? So I think that might be something I'd like to see from like a Nintendo perspective of this episode, right? Like I think that would be really nice in 2024.
Yeah, as someone, I finally got a next generation console. Shout out to myself. And whatever. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, and
It's all good.
I just keep talking. And but anyway, so I was like looking for this episode. I was like looking through the releases for next year, and there's like a decent amount of games that I'm pretty excited to see. Weirdly enough, I'll probably play the new Alone in the Dark. It looks like pretty all right, but it does look like they were trying to straddle both generations with that game in particular. So like the one thing I really want to see is to fully leave behind like the past generation of Xbox One, PS4 era, so that we're not having to like bottleneck or throttle games capability so that it'll play on older hardware. It's been 2 years since they've come out. Or is it 3? What is time?
I think it's been 3.
Time is a flat circle.
It's 2020. Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
They're finally fully available. You can walk into a store and grab one. We're getting discounts. That's why I bought mine. So like we need to just ditch any sort of last gen technology or, and just fully move forward.
You'll get no ports of those for Switch 2 then, I bet. I think like Switch 2, like how Switch got like PS2 and like 360 ports. I think we're going to be getting a ton of like PS4 era ports for Super Switch.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I can talk about games, but I mean, there's just like, I did not realize, I thought 2023 was pretty stacked and that 2024 was going to be a lull, but it does not look like it's really stopping. I mean, just, I probably with the new console, I'll probably play that new Star Wars Outlaw game.
That looks good. Yeah.
Looks pretty cool. Hesitant about a Ubisoft joint, but I'll fuck around. I'll find out. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 maybe finally coming out. I will play it, but I am expecting a train wreck. A new Visions of Mana game is like crazy that they were getting a new Mana game in the year 2024.
Yeah, they revealed it at the Game Awards. Yeah.
Avowed, the new Obsidian RPG. I actually was a really big fan of Outer Worlds, so I'm excited to see what they have on deck next.
That's making me realize, like, where is Perfect Dark, and Fable? Are we going to see more from those two games next year? Or do those even have a chance of releasing in 2024?
Oh, man.
I kind of doubt it.
Maybe, though. I mean, they've been announced for like a while now. Yeah. I mean, oh man, I didn't even think about those. I know they're not like announced for release, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that's just all off top. The one game I know I definitely want to see in 2024, and I'm going to pass it off to you, Patrick, is Silk Song. Where is it?
Well, it's funny. We were talking about this before the show, and I think every once in a while I get a wild hair and I just start watching all the Silk Song like speculation videos. And there's like one person that puts out a video every day about it. I forget what their name is. And most of the time it's like, there's no news. But sometimes there's a little bit, and or a little bit more discussion. But one of the points that somebody made is that there are three, it's really three people. I think they have obviously a bigger team now than they used to, probably with like QA and stuff, but it's really just three people working on this game. And we were talking about this before, that somebody goes through something big in their life, that could be a thing. Like I think one of them has had children since they've started making it, and that could have slowed things down. But I do feel like 2024 is the year.
Yeah, it's gotta be, right? Come on.
Just given everything, the way it just seems like, but it does kind of seem like something has happened, whether one of them got really sick or one of them's like, hey, we got to delay this because of this, some family thing, who knows, right? But I don't know. It's such a wild ride.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just out of the list that we have here of games that are coming out, I think the ones I'm most excited for, hopefully in a couple weeks we'll be talking about this, The Prince of Persia, Lost Crown. I've been looking forward to that for seemingly years now at this point. Then also Penny's Big Breakaway, from the Sonic Mania devs. Been really excited for that. Also, just like I think 2024 is going to be a great year for indie 3D platformers. Fabraz, who's the creators of Demon Turf, he puts out a list like every year of like upcoming 3D platformer games that look really good. And I saw one of those today. And there's like a bunch, a lot of which are games that I kickstarted and I'm a backer of. And a lot of that stuff is coming out this year. So like in the indie space, like beyond the stuff that we have on this list, which is like kind of like big AAA games or just games of note from big, announcements like some are Keeley announcements and stuff like that. There's a lot of really, really interesting looking indie releases that I'm looking forward to in 2024 as well.
Yeah, even if we don't get a new Fire Emblem specifically game, we do know that we're getting Unicorn Overlord, which I remember when that got announced, all of the Fire Emblem people were like, so we're getting this game though, right? Like, even though we didn't get a new announcement for a new Fire Emblem game, we're like, we're all getting Unicorn Overlord, right? Because this is like this is basically Fire Emblem made by the Persona people. So I guess we're gonna play this. And I'll just go ahead and throw this out there since we're talking about small indie studios that may or may not have things coming out next year. I'll just say Deltarune Chapter 3. And I think I'll go ahead and say chapters 3, 4, and 5, because I think those were supposed to release at the same time. I know they're all being worked on at the same time as a purchasable unit. So I'm just putting that out there in the universe. Got to get the Toby Fox mention.
Toby Fox is way too busy writing songs for Pokemon games.
He is getting a lot of other work. Yeah, well, he does give us updates every so often, and the conversation about like small devs having like problems or whatever reminded me of that, because I remember one of his last major updates was the specific jobs that he was hiring for, even though he's like, I know I'm a control freak, but I am in too much pain. I need help if I want to get this done. And
maybe that's what Sakurai is working on. I know Sakurai and Toby Fox, they get lunch all the time.
That would be so insane. Oh my gosh. Watch, it's going to be a Bayonetta situation where it ends up being a Switch exclusive because of that, right? They put their hands in it and they're like, oh, but actually everything Toby Fox works on is now the Switch only, just like Bayonetta. And then people are going to go ape shit.
I think right now Toby Fox and Sakurai are listening to this podcast while doing each other's nails by the pool. They're just having a ball of a time. Oh. They love Super Switch Headz.
They do. It's true.
All right, gang, I think we should wrap this up. And I think there's one thing we have on here that we should definitely mention. And I hope that 2024 is a better year for the industry, and that I hope we get no mergers and that we get, better pay and more jobs for developers, and stop the, hire and then lay off everybody trend that's been happening.
Give us an industry-wide strike, so that way they can all make what they need to make, and I can play all the games before more bangers come out.
Yeah, or maybe in lieu of a strike, like some meaningful changes so we can avoid something like that. I mean, first of all, you need organization, right?
Yes.
And it's like, and then, which I think is happening. I think we are going to see major strides in organizing, in labor organization in 2024. We're seeing a lot of it behind the scenes right now, and it's all going to be coming to a head in 2024.
I just picked up a book that is like about how to organize in the industry. It's like Marxism in the Arcade, I think is what it's called.
Awesome.
And
I gotta pick that up.
I know. And I was like, I literally opened it up, and I opened it up to a chapter that was like, in the following chapter, I have laid out how to organize in the industry. And I'm like, wait a minute. So very excited to read that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that that's going to be huge, and I think that's going to be helpful. But I think, Patrick, you're right. As long as the top level mergers and acquisitions keep happening, the price is low level employees, right? And that's always going to be the case. I think like we got pretty blinded by the Activision Blizzard thing going on for a while, being like, hey, a bunch of games coming to Game Pass and everything, blah, 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 and it's better than it's going to Sony or blah, 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 blah. No, I think that we're going to see layoffs as a result of that. And we're seeing, obviously, a ton of the Embracer stuff happening, right? And so I think hopefully everybody's starting to get a little bit of the picture after this year and some lessons are being learned. I highly doubt it, right? Which is why I think that bottom up grassroots organizing is going to be the best way to fight some of this stuff. But yeah, hopefully we just start to see a lot more smaller teams pop up with independent money as opposed to having to rely on these major conglomerates. That would be my hope as well.
All right. Well, I think that's it then for our episode. If you're out there listening, definitely shoot us a note with what you're anticipating and with what you're expecting or hoping and looking forward to in 2024 in terms of video games. And we'll say thanks to MilkyWay.co doing our website. Thanks to Corduroy doing our music. If you're looking for me, Patrick, I am PDYX online.
You can find me at WeBewitched.
You can find me at Boardin.
And I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet at Monolith Fiji. If you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Twitter, at Super Switch Headz on Instagram and Facebook. We got a website, switchheadz.com, and then we've got a Facebook group and a Discord. We'll have links to both of those in the description of this podcast, whether you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts, or watching the video version on YouTube. Please leave a review, share with a friend, like and subscribe on YouTube. Let's boost those numbers. Let's get up to 500 subs, right? Is that too much to fucking ask after 5 years of doing a podcast? I think that's a pretty reasonable ask on YouTube. So subscribe to us over there and look at our pretty faces every week because we bust our ass on the show. We'd love to have you guys enjoy it over there in the video version. That's going to do it for this episode. And that's going to do it for 2023. I mean, by the time you're listening to this, it will already be the new year. But thank you guys so much. Yeah, thank you so much for listening throughout this year. I can't wait to continue making awesome episodes for you guys throughout 2024. I love doing this podcast. I can't speak for you guys, but I'm not going anywhere. I love doing Switch Headz. This is one of my favorite things to do in the world, and we love doing this for you guys. So be tuned in throughout the year because we got a lot of great stuff in the pipeline, and we can't wait for you guys to hear it, including maybe finally making a fucking Patreon. That's gonna do it, everybody. We love you guys very much. We'll see you next year. Bye-bye.